Welcome back to Breaking Down Storage Tech. Today we're breaking down a one-wide tileable precision hybrid box loader by Zhao Chen 1. So let's get straight into it. So this system is a precision hybrid box loader. What does that mean? Well, a precision box loader means that it loads shulker boxes with whatever item comes into the system and with precision, which means that this box right here has no chance of going into any of the other slices. If it gets loaded in this slice right here, then it won't go into any of the other slices. Now, the hybrid part of it means that you have access to the items in terms of item form as well as shulker boxes form as well. That's the hybrid part, because it's a hybrid between traditional fixed inputs or fixed items and the shulker box loader. Now, the system isn't quite very advanced. The main thing is what I wanted to talk about in this video today is how cool the hopper locking in this system is, because I just think it's really cool. It is a 100% hopper locked system, but I just think the way that it goes about hopper locking is really unique, and I don't know, I really like it. So let's get straight into it. Up here at the top we have the inputs. These are just regular inputs. These aren't actually filtered inputs. Any item will go into here. So there's obviously space above here where you can build your own sorters, whether that be SSI, SS2, whatever it is, and you can kind of have a few inputs. You might be able to get away with locking everything as well as locking the filter inputs, and yeah, you'll have to see how that works depending on what kind of filters you want to use. But the items will come down into this item hopper and go all the way down, and when they get here, this is where the order of operations go. This hopper will always pull before this hopper has a chance to push items, so it will always pull into this chest right here. So what will happen is it will always fill up this chest right here, then this hopper, and then the shulker boxer. The reason the shulker box has items is because I filled it already, just for demonstration purposes. So this means that before you get any boxes right here, you will always have easier first access to the item in item form. This is great in case you're starting up a system and you're straining the items and you need the items really fast, and you don't have to wait for a full box to be loaded before you get access to them. So what will happen is this whole system will actually fill up here, and I'll just demonstrate that right here. It will fill up right here, fill up this hopper right here, and then once it starts, or once this hopper is filled, then it will start pushing into this hopper right here, and you'll see it's pushing into this shulker box. The reason the items in this shulker box aren't getting pulled down is because this hopper right now is locked, which comes from this repeater powering this block, which is powered from this redstone block. So what actually happens is, because in most hybrid loaders, all of the sides are pretty much filled up. You have one for the item input, you have one for the piston to break it, one to place the shulker box, and one to take out the shulker box. Your four sides in your slice are completely used up. So you have to take a input or a output from an earlier on or later on, I guess you could say, once this has filled and backfilled, later on, to actually power the whole system to cause the shulker box to break. Now in this system's case, it is all the way up here in this barrel right here. So all of these hoppers can fill up, and all of this hopper can fill up until an item gets to this barrel. Nothing will fire, and this shulker box won't be broken. As you can see right here, it's completely filled and nothing's happening. Now the reason items can pass through it, if I empty this right here and put a few items in here, the reason this system fires is because once the items make their way into the barrel, they get immediately pulled out by the hopper. That's just how Minecraft works, and the comparator doesn't have enough time to register that the item was in the barrel at any point. So what happens when it does register a item is inside the barrel, what will happen is it will power through this observer, and it will power this piston, extending it and pushing the observer right here where this block is, or this air block is right here. This is, I think, a really old kind of way of doing a T flip-flop. But basically what will happen is it will push it up, leave it there for a second, and then this will basically keep extended, because until this system gets cleared and all of this gets cleared and this comparator gets unpowered, and it will unpower the piston. But basically, once the observer gets pushed up here into the air block, it will pulse because the observer has detected its moved position. Now, once it's powers, it will power this iron trap door, which will flick open, which will send 2 observer updates, one to this observer and one to this observer. The one down in this observer right here will power, and it doesn't really do much. It kind of locks this hopper, but that's not too important. What happens is it also powers down to this observer and powers this piston through the comparator, and this piston breaks the shulker box and pushes it into this hopper right here. Now, this hopper is currently locked, so technically it wouldn't go in, but that's because we haven't talked about this signal yet. What happens in this signal is this observer detects that the piston is, or not the piston, the iron trap door has opened, and will push this entire line right here. Now, the first thing that'll happen is this redstone block will no longer be here. So this hopper right here will no longer be locked and will be unlocked, allowing for this shulker box to go into the dispenser, and this the shulker boxes in the shulker line go down. Just for reference, this is the shulker line. You can either put, doesn't actually have support for blocks above it or composters above it, but that's because the shulker line actually gets locked in this system. Now, what also happens is that while the pistons or the redstone blocks are moving because they're getting pushed, they no longer power this repeater right here, which causes this hopper to unlock, which allows the broken shulker box to continue down the system. Now, the interesting thing that actually happens is this observer line right here. As you can see, if I orient it like this, the arrows matching this way, it's watching this line right here. So basically what happens is it will power when it notices them start to move, or the system start to move. So it will power this observer, or this hopper right here, but also power this dropper right here, which is why the system is so interesting. Apart from the hopper locking, what it happens is the shulker box travels down and then gets powered while it's in the dropper and gets shot into this chest, and it will fill up this chest right here before filling up the other two. Now, what happens when for the system to reset is this observer, when it gets moved down, detects that it's moved positions and powers the piston that it's above. So it pushes the entire line back up, locking all the lines, and it uses this relocking of this redstone line right here to power and power this dispenser with the shulker box to place a new shulker box, which will obviously allow this hopper to start pushing items and the items in this barrel to start coming down. Now, and then obviously this piston will retract and all will be good in the world. Now, I did not mention that there's also a second comparator output coming from this barrel right here, and it's to this comparator right here. What happens is this comparator will then power, and regardless of what side it's on, it will power the block and then power the repeater on the other side, locking this top hopper. This is done so that as soon as this barrel starts to get a bunch of items, it doesn't actually overfill with items. All the items get stuck into this hopper right here, so that way it doesn't cause some weird signals to happen, because this is powered for longer than it should be, and then a bunch of weird mumbo jumbo can happen. So it just makes sure everything's here so that the system can clear, and then the items can start passing through the barrel as originally intended without any comparator outputs being taken. Now, what happens in this bottom system right here when this box gets filled up is actually the hopper at the bottom starts pushing into here. So what will actually happen is this box will fill up right here, and then the dropper will no longer be able to push any redstone shulker boxes into this box, so it'll go down into here. So that is one of the weird things about the system. It will fill, first of all, this item, then it will fill this chest full of shulker boxes, and then it'll fill this one and then this one. So it's kind of a weird order to do things, and some people may not like it. I don't mind it too much. It's a bit unnerving to look at, like to try and understand it, but I think overall it's fine, especially for how cheap the system is. So now it's finally time to get into what makes this system, I think, so unique, and that's the hopper locking. So up here you have this hopper locking right here, and this is just some basic hopper locking. What happens is you power this block right here, which powers this repeater, powering this block, which powers this redstone wire right here. Now what happens is this targets into the target block and locks this hopper, And this hopper right here is locked, obviously, because of the redstone wire on top of it. That's nice and simple. That's mainly your shulker line and not too much else. Now, this line right here is internally locked because you want to keep it, and so you have as little of a shulker box buffer as you want, or as you would want. So that way you don't have to like waste a bunch of shulker boxes. This line right here is also very self-explanatory. When you power this on, these two redstone wires unpower, which unpowers these redstone torches, powering these redstone torches like this, and that locks this hopper. And it also powers this redstone dust above it, which locks this hopper, and I believe we can actually test. It also locks this hopper and then these two hoppers as well, because this redstone dust powers the neighboring block, which locks that, and these two redstone torches power the blocks above, which power these two blocks right here. All well and good, you basically powered these 6 hoppers. This hopper right here is locked as well from the system internally. Then what's interesting is how this part locks right here. What happens is, ignoring this piston for now, a signal gets sent to, or no longer gets sent to this repeater and this redstone dust, so it no longer turns off all of these redstone torches. Now, this causes power to go to this repeater and this redstone torch, which locks these two hoppers, and by powering the block above it, this redstone torch locks this hopper as well. Now, what also happens is, this redstone torch powers this redstone wire right here, as well as this redstone torch powering this block right here. So it powers these two repeaters, which also power these two droppers, locking, again, these bottom hoppers, but that's not really needed, or it's needed for this hopper, but not this hopper. And it also locks these two hoppers right here, because of powering through the dropper, they power these two hoppers. Now, the interesting thing is this system also uses the redstone torches to extend these pistons. What this does is prevents this whole actuation here from firing, which is kind of weird in my opinion, because it stops this from firing, which means that all of this right here, all of the unlocking of this hopper and this dispenser or firing another shulker box stops, regardless of the fill level right here. But what I find kind of weird about this system is that's isolated from the breaking of the box itself, which again doesn't really make sense. So you would break the box if somehow items got into the system while it's locked, which isn't going to happen because we locked these two top hoppers when they locked, and I'll talk about that in a second. But theoretically, if items were to make its way into the system, it will break the box and not replace it, and the box will just despawn. And I think that's just something very funny, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just an oversight, or maybe there's something I didn't see. I don't know. I think it's a little bit unique. Now up here, this is the final thing right here. And basically it uses a composter right here to power. I think you could power this with a regular just input, but I'm not too sure. And what happens is you move it up, and this redstone comparator takes a signal output from here, which powers these redstone dust right here. And what happens is this redstone dust gets pulled into this block by this target block, which powers this hopper right here, preventing any input. And then this redstone wire right here also powering this block, which powers this hopper right here, locking it. So technically no input can come into the system once this is actuated. Yeah, I'm not exactly too sure why they use a regular, or not a regular power system to lock the system, but instead they use a composter signal strength. Maybe it's just for lag purposes, but I'm not too sure about that. But overall, I think it's really unique in the way it does things. Like, obviously, like the item input layout, I think it's quite weird. But the hopper locking is quite fun and unique, and as well, it's very cheap for the system. Like, probably the most expensive thing in the system are the target blocks, which are 3 to 2, depending on what slice you have. But overall, pretty unique system, and yeah, thank you for watching.